I just bought my first ever MacBook Pro. Looking at this thing right now, I'm not sure if this would be able to handle what I needed to get done because it's so light. It was definitely a pleasant experience being able to afford a MacBook Pro because I've always wanted one for a long time now, especially during my graphic design days. Well, I have one now and it has the new M series chip, which is also called Apple Silicon chips. But I don't know if I'll be able to fully move to this laptop. Given I'm coming from a Windows workstation, although every video I've watched on YouTube says it's a beast in itself. But how can a beast be this tiny? Anyways, fingers crossed, because right now I'm sort of kind of downloading the software I might need to run this to see if I would be able to actually move to this laptop. I'm a first time Mac user, so I don't know if you understand how I feel about this. Anyways, right now I'm trying to get apps that I would usually use on a daily like Chrome, DaVinci and the rest of them. Picking up for the first time, first thing I noticed with this operating system was it's just like an iPhone's operating system, but of course with more features, or like iPad OS. So getting used to it from that angle wouldn't be much of a hassle. You just, of course, if you've been using an iPhone, that would just come naturally. It has an app store too, but I can't seem to find apps that we would usually use on the app store, so it is really limited because I was hoping to find Adobe software is there and other type, but of course you have to get those from website. Most of the apps, in fact, you have to get them from their website and not on the Mac store. Unfortunately, it's still called App Store though, not Mac Store. I guess that's the reason you don't get all the softwares in there. Anyways, the more reason I felt like this can't possibly be my all-in-one workstation, like maybe because of how thin and lightweight this thing is. I'm still trying to get used to it though. Besides, the model I got is the M1 MacBook Pro with 16GB of RAM. I was really advised towards getting 16GB if you want to use your computer for a long time, because then 8 gigs is just not enough. So yeah, 16GB of RAM, 1TB SSD, which I actually got a great deal off of on the used market, and I just went for it. I wanted to actually go for the M1 Pro, but I didn't want to wait any longer or spend that much money yet because I don't even know if I'd like this machine. Anyways, I was particular about getting one with 16GB of RAM, like I mentioned before, because I'll actually be multitasking a lot. Of course, video editing is one of the things I do on a daily, so 16GB of RAM will be very much needed. But as you already know, something to have in mind with this very model is that it lacks ports. You only get 2 Thunderbolt ports, and on the other side you get a 3.5mm headphone jack. I think that's what it's called, and that's all. You don't get any more than that. And I think this version, they said, only supports one external monitor. So imagine having to plug in one monitor and charge a device. No more ports for anything else, say for SSDs or whatever. And that is where dongles comes in at. You need to get a couple of these. Stay away from the ones with wires though. You get the one that attach directly to your MacBook and just stays there. The very first thing that got my attention was how good the sound quality coming out of this speaker was.
She stole my heart, I came here to fetch it. Hi, I'm Jay.
Hey, I'm Cindy.
It was like a mini JBL speaker playing because it has bass. I mean, it's just amazing how them tiny holes on this thing could actually produce bass, and also gives this illusion of full surround sound. It is crazy. I don't know how Apple did it, but they did it, and it is mind blowing. Honestly, I mean, I've used a lot of Windows laptops with great sounding speakers, but you see this one right here, it's at a different level. I don't know how Apple made it happen, but they made it happen. You have to experience this for yourself to really get the feel for it. Honestly, as great as a lot of these sound, the typing experience wasn't all that great. Well, the keyboard feels good. The travel on these are so shallow that I kind of miss the ones on my Windows laptop. Also, when typing, I mostly tend to hit the wrong keys with my pinky finger. This definitely is gonna take a little more getting used to, that's for sure. But one of my favorite features that I enjoyed right from the get-go, which I'm sure you must have heard a lot about, is the trackpad. I have no idea how this was built, but I can tell you for a fact that no Windows laptop has a trackpad that is as good as the one on the MacBook. It is insanely, it works so well that I'm like, I've been missing out. Honestly, the way it responds is just that good, especially the subtle click that you get on the trackpad. That is just so satisfying. I haven't seen a Windows laptop that has that yet. And the interesting thing is, wherever, even at the slightest corner, the click still works. You still feel the click, as opposed to Windows build quality where maybe the click might work at around here, but when you start going to the edge, it begins to feel stiff. But no, the click is consistent around the trackpad, and this, in my opinion, is just so cool. I don't know how Apple built this thing, but damn, the build quality on this is amazing. There's just so much gestures with this trackpad. Like, you have the 4-finger swipe, you have the 3-finger swipe, you have the slide to the side. I could just keep going on and on. But generally though, learning how to use the MacBook as efficiently as I can with the Windows hasn't been a lot of headache really. I guess it took me about 2 days to really get a feel for it and understand how the few things work, at least to say like 65% of it, which is more than good enough to actually get me started and using this guy full time. Of course, you definitely need to get used to using command instead of control and option key instead of alt if you're coming from Windows like myself, but that will take a while. I mean, you still have to look at your keyboard and like, oh, okay, this is control, this is shift, this is how I combine it on Windows. And the cool thing is that most of the shortcuts coming from your Windows laptop will still work here. Just like I mentioned, command instead of control, option instead of alt, it will work. And after watching a ton of videos like this one on how to do certain things on the MacBook Pro, one advice I got that I would also give you is that don't try to use Mac like Windows. Learn the Mac way of doing things, if that makes sense, and do it that way. So I stopped looking for Windows things on Mac basically and just find Mac ways of doing things. Especially how you install apps on Macs is quite different from how you would install them on Windows. More reason why you need to learn Mac ways of doing things. And of course, if you run into any problems, just Google it. So this is basically my first impression after getting a Mac for just a few days. Well, let's just keep rocking with it. After a while, I'll definitely give you an update on the progress of things, if I actually sold it back to the market and stick to my Windows, or I was actually able to use it. That you'll find out soon. Until then, adios.